Good afternoon, stock traders, and welcome back to Stock Traders Talk Radio. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm your host, Stock Sumo. We have an exclusive interview lined up for today, and conducting today's interview is Haas. Haas, take it away.
Man, you almost threw me off there a little bit, Stock Sumo, with the good afternoon. We're used to the morning show or the evening show. So, all right. Well, without further ado, let's get rolling. We have a special afternoon CEO interview for our listeners. We're here with Mr. Michael Llamas, the president of Medical Marijuana Incorporated. The stock ticker is MJNA. Mr. Llamas has a diverse history and background in the private equity and investment industry, focused on medical and industrial applications of cannabis and hemp. In this interview, I'd like to cover the recent developments of the company, specifically focusing on some of their various subsidiaries and partners through Canchu Biotechnologies, Wellness Managed Services, Hemp Meds RX, Dixie Elixirs and Dixie X product development, as well as Phytosphere Systems hemp production. Welcome to Stock Trader Stock, Mr. Llamas.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. How are you? Appreciate you guys taking the time.
Oh, no, we appreciate getting any company CEO on the show that we can, especially a company of the caliber. I've been doing a lot of research and some due diligence on your company over the last couple of days, and sounds like you guys are setting up for one heck of a run here. Why don't we just start off? Whoop. Go ahead. You can comment on that. That's fine. You can interrupt.
Anytime you want. No problem. Well, I said we've spent quite a bit of time in the industry, and appreciate you guys taking the time to do your due diligence and review the information that's been published recently. It's been an exciting time.
Perfect. Well, why don't we start off? And why don't you just give our audience a brief history of how the company has came to light here, and a brief history about yourself while you're at it.
Great. Well, I guess I'll get into my background a little bit. So I started off in the distressed debt real estate acquisitions industry, focused primarily on syndicating real estate packages and distressed debt, conforming, non-conforming, real estate mortgage-type products, acquiring those and working them through either the bankruptcy type situation or a restructure. So we've been in the foreclosure real estate industry going on about 12 years now, specifically on the distressed debt side. We went from that into investing into everything from wind energy to oil and gas to sustainable type businesses and companies. About 6 years ago, we started looking at the hemp industry and cannabis industry randomly. We got a phone call from a few companies looking for capital, and long story short is for 6 months to a year, we kept telling them, there's no way we're ever we're never investing in the marijuana industry, never investing in the hemp industry. But it's illegal, all kinds of issues, potential issues with that. We don't have anything to do with it. So finally, after quite some time of us doing our due diligence, we found out that there are, legal aspects of the industry, the industrial applications of hemp, the different products, the sustainability of the products, renewability. So we ended up pulling the trigger about 5 years ago on our first investment, which was on cannabis type technology, equipment, tracking, facility management, kind of things of that nature. And about over the course of the last 5 years, we've made numerous transactions, and that was through Cannabank initially. And we've been tracking Medical Marijuana Inc. Since its inception, since 2009, following what the company was doing, how they're building their portfolio. And of May of last year, we ended up acquiring a controlling interest in Medical Marijuana Inc. And since then have been developing its portfolio, streamlining its processes, really focusing on patentable technology and applications for different products, and focused on really building its revenue streams, a diverse revenue stream that wasn't dependent on truly the typical cannabis dispensary type market. like I mentioned, we're pretty risk adverse. So we have been looking at the technology aspect of industrialized hemp-based products, medicinal hemp-based products such as our Canchu and others. So that's about the 40,000 foot overview.
Oh, fantastic. Why don't we get into some of the details on each of the companies within Medical Marijuana Incorporated itself, or subsidiaries, if you will. Do you want to touch on those? I don't know which one you want to start with. I mean, we have Phytosphere, the Elixirs and Edibles, Hemp Meds RX, Wellness Managed Services, and Canchu. Why don't we go through each one and just kind of give a basic overview of each one?
Yeah, great. Each one's we've got a pretty diverse portfolio. Each one has its own set of products and services. And I guess I'll start with Phytosphere Systems. Phytosphere Systems is really a technology company, production company. So it holds the IP for the production of cannabis and industrialized hemp to be able to produce high-value extracts such as our CBD oil, such as genetically pure cultivars of hemp. So that company's really focused on the technology aspect, on acquiring and developing additional IP, as well as in the actual production of those products and the assisting of other companies in developing their product line, their cannabinoid-based product lines. So that company it's been doing very well. I don't know if you guys have seen the most recent updates, but we've signed several contracts for the production of our hemp oil, which is exciting. We've spent several years in production of those products and making sure we were able to fine-tune it and streamline our processes to create the most effective ingredients for the medicinal cannabis and medicinal hemp markets. And so Phytosphere Systems was established as a biotechnology and production company to do that. And it's doing rather well. So I'd stay tuned for those most recent updates.
Well, yeah, they just announced that $7.5 million production contract there. I don't think that's too shabby.
No, not at all. It shows our proof of concept. We've been really focused on those hemp oils and extracts for some time now, and have recently, that was through Cannabank and Hemp Deposit, and we just recently have transferred those Phytosphere assets over. So now Medical Marijuana Inc. is able to realize those years of work and production and genetics and production facilities and training and staff, all of which Medical Marijuana Inc. didn't have to finance. That was financed through the Cannabank. So it's an exciting opportunity for us as management to be able to realize the results of the years of development production, as well as for our shareholders, because they're able to see a pretty drastic increase in our revenues, profit margins, and frankly, we've got a product that is heavily desired, that isn't in the market currently, and there's some heavy barriers to entry to enter the market. From a genetic standpoint, we've been breeding our genetics for years to get them to the point to where we can have a hemp-based product that has such a high level of cannabidiol, which is what everybody kind of it's been the buzzword in the industry for the past few years, and I think you'll see a lot more of that, the CBD-rich oil, CBD-rich hemp oil. So it's a pretty exciting time and opportunity. And now, Phytosphere is really moving into some other services as well, since we've launched our production of those products, more of which you guys will hear in the next few weeks and coming quarters. But now the company is providing services to the other businesses within our portfolio, as well as some outside businesses, and soon we'll be bidding off to be able to assist other entities in their production of their cannabinoid-based products or hemp oil-based products. So it's a really exciting time and a large growth industry for us, for sure.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we move over from Phytosphere to the Dixie Elixirs and Edibles, another food-based products containing various cannabinoid-based compounds?
Yeah, so Dixie Elixirs is the brand. We acquired the brand recently through holding company Red Dice Holdings, and that company focuses on the formulations and the direct sales of our Dixie X-based products, which you can go to our website, www.medicalmarijuanainc.com, and look under our portfolio and Dixie Elixirs, and you can see all the different products and services that Dixie provides. We've got essentially 5 distinct product lines, which consist of about 55 daily consumables. So everything from over-the-counter type products like a dewdrop, which is good for aiding with muscle spasticity, and to also selling and distributing our newly acquired company, CanChew. So Dixie has got a pretty big market share in Colorado. Currently, there's about 450 plus accounts under Dixie's portfolio in terms of the products that they sell to, out of roughly about 700. So it's a pretty big market share in Colorado. We've been focused on growing that business's Dixie X product base, which we're going to be launching in early September. We announced September 5th and September 15th we'll be taking the Dixie X product lines and brands nationally, which is really the first of its kind hemp-based medicinal products to be launched nationally, and not just medical marijuana centers, but can be sold over the internet by phone, as well as in the different health and wellness clinics. So Dixie's developing those products and is actively acquiring additional products and brands, and rolling those under their flagship, and taking those products and being able to distribute them to their network of clientele. So it was a really good opportunity for Medical Marijuana Inc. and for Dixie to be able to expand that portfolio and to bring those products to clients and patients nationally and soon internationally. Which brought me into Wellness Managed Services, which is essentially our management company. Wellness Managed Services manages clinics, just like we mentioned a few minutes ago, that Dixie sells products to health and wellness facilities, clinics, dispensaries, that typical type market. Well, Wellness Managed Services comes in and either acquires those type facilities, so we can fully vertically integrate from the production of the product all the way to the distribution and sales of those products through storefronts. So Wellness Managed Services provides services to those collectives, cooperatives, health and wellness facilities, and the services are full portfolio of products, capital to expand and grow their business, as well as a potential exit. So we'll come in and acquire those health and wellness facilities, roll those into the portfolio, and the operator's got a turnkey business that they get to operate day in and day out, but don't necessarily have to worry about stocking their shelves, don't have to worry about payroll, don't have to worry about the typical nuances that go on with managing health and wellness facility or clinic. We take all of those services on, and also offer them an exit in the event that they are interested in selling. And the advantage, to that for us is pretty significant, not just from a revenue standpoint, but also from a product distribution standpoint, because these clinics and health and wellness facilities, we get to come in and rebrand those under, the Dixie type flagship in terms of products and the portfolio that we offer. And then we get a direct insight to the consumers and that heavy volume and traffic that's derived from a storefront. So pretty exciting opportunity. And we've been actively growing that portfolio, and you can kind of see that in our financials as the amount of revenue that we've been able to generate from Wellness Managed has been pretty significant over the past few quarters. So exciting opportunity, and much more to come.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like you guys are putting together quite the portfolio, very complex and versatile, but they all kind of mesh together and they can utilize each other and play off each other a little bit. Why don't we get to the other two? What? Go for it.
Yeah, they're definitely, I apologize, they're definitely complementary. For instance, Phytosphere Systems that produces all of our extracts and oils. Well, they're able to. We're essentially eventually will be our biggest consumer and client of those products because of Dixie elixirs and edible-based products, as well as being able to retail and reformulate those products into other types of consumables. So we're able to really control our own growth, control our margins, which is much different than you see in the market currently. So it's exciting for us.
Okay. Why don't we briefly touch on the other two before we get into the actual industry itself? Talk a little bit about HempMeds RX and also the Canchu Biotechnologies, which I believe that acquisition was a little more recent.
Yeah, so like you mentioned a few minutes ago, we've got a pretty diverse portfolio. Phytosphere produces all of our raw ingredients. Dixie produces the consumables, the over-the-counter type products. That produces them, wholesales them, and distributes them. Wellness Managed Services provides management services to these health and wellness clinics, as well as an exit for them. If they're interested in selling, we'll acquire those facilities if it makes financial sense and sense for the company. And then HempMeds is really the formulator of our, what we call our medicinal-based products, as well as the aggregator of all the products. Right? So HempMeds is our online sales site, which will be up and products will be selling September 5th for our soft launch through the 15th. And so HempMeds not only has the products for sale on the site, it formulates and deals with kind of the heavy lifting for approvals in the different markets, such as its partnership with Knipa Holdings in the European market to get the current portfolio of products we've got through Dixie, as well as Canchu approved. So HempMeds focuses on the aggregating of those products for them to be sold retail on the internet, as well as working through the disclosure and approval process internationally, so that these products can be sold not just in the U.S., North America, South America, the European and Asian markets as well. So that site will be up September 5th. Pretty exciting. We spent a lot of time. Our team has been unbelievable in making sure we've gotten the appropriate approvals, the appropriate testing, the appropriate sales channels. So you'll see quite a bit of movement on the HempMeds side come September. So that's exciting. And then Canchu, which is one of our most recent businesses we've invested in. Canchu is very exciting. In fact, it's our long-term play for the future, the pharmaceutical grade products in the industry. So Canchu was developed by a group of doctors out of New York and the Netherlands by the Sanimed Foundation, and they were focused on the application of chewing gum, which to a lot of people, it's chewing gum. So what can you possibly do with chewing gum? But in all actuality, chewing gum is one of the best, if not the best, delivery of cannabinoids, cannabis-based products you can possibly have, because of the absorption through your oral mucosa, sublingually, as well as digestively. So it's the best way to absorb a cannabinoid or a cannabis or a hemp-based product. So we recently acquired 50% interest in that company and those particular patents. We're covered in 61 countries currently and expanding, and that's for the cannabinoids in general with a gum-based product. So that's exciting. And we're developing that product currently in the United States for sale for a September 15th launch date as well, which we publicized a few weeks ago. And internationally, we're expecting those approvals in 60 days or so for our final approvals in the European market. So very exciting opportunity. Canchu, like I mentioned before, is really it's going to be a big focus for us in the future, a patented pharmaceutical grade product that we're developing specifically for pain and pain management. So currently, we're not able to make the medical claims on the product. But long term, we're going through the processes now to be able to make those medical claims. And Europe, which we'll have an update on in the next few weeks on where we currently stand with that. But in September, the product will be available over the counter for general pain relief, which is a very exciting market, not just for cannabis and cannabinoids, but in general. There's been a very large gap in the industry, such as Motrin and Tylenol and Vicodin being taken off the market in 2013. So there's a large gap for a pharmaceutical-grade pain product, and we think we've got the best thing in the market. So stay tuned for a lot more to come on that company. Exciting updates on approvals, where we're at in the clinical development. So it's going to be a great product for us and for our shareholders.
Yeah, I remember reading that press release, the first one that I saw related to the can chew, and I was like, that is absolutely genius. How is it possible that someone hasn't thought of that up to this point? But as you mentioned, the regulatory processes has hindered the development in this particular niche industry for a while now. Why don't we touch on that a little bit? I mean, what sort of legal hurdles and various types of regulatory hurdles within the U.S. and also overseas? I mean, you guys have talked a lot in recent press about expanding into the European Union. I mean, what are the differences in regulatory approvals that you need within each industry overseas versus the United States versus anywhere else you guys are thinking about expanding to?
Yeah, great question. We get that question all the time. In terms of challenges, we've had many. I mean, we've had walls every month we've had to overcome in terms of the political environment, the legal structure, the legality of manufacturing certain type products from a local jurisdiction, from a state type issue to a federal, to an international, to an import, to an export, potential issues and legalities. So it's interesting because everybody who looks at medical marijuana Inc. on the surface looks at just the name, and they look at medical marijuana and the turmoil going on in the industry and some of the issues that are going on in Los Angeles and different states with the regulating, how they dispense their cannabis, to who's able to dispense it, who's able to consume it. And what we focused on was, truly the legal aspects of the medicinal cannabis and hemp industry. And so there's a lot that can be focused on there. So from our standpoint, regardless of what happens politically in the United States, who's president, Romney, Obama, Ron Paul, anyone else who may end up getting elected, that doesn't change our focus of our, that doesn't change, the focus of our business. It doesn't change the outcome of our business or the industry that we're in. It doesn't matter what happens in California in terms of all of our CBD-based products, our can chew, our Dixie X-based products. It truly doesn't matter if California tomorrow decided to criminalize marijuana at a state level, or the federal government decided to legalize marijuana or industrial hemp. From our standpoint, our products are completely legal. We have the appropriate opinion letters from our counsel on our products stating that they're completely legal for us to produce, import, sell, and distribute in the United States, as well as the other markets that we're currently in. So we get quite a bit of questions on that, and I think that that's affected the kind of the public opinion and of our company, and particularly it's a share price where that's been, and the negatives in the industry have really affected that. But I appreciate you asking that. So from our standpoint, it truly doesn't matter, like I said, who's president in the United States or in Canada or prime minister in the UK. That doesn't really affect our business because our products are completely federally legal and compliant for us to sell day in and day out through stores, through dispensaries, because we're choosing to still go through those models, as well as health and wellness facilities, or directly to clients. Now, on the opposite end of that, we do have our technology that works equally as well for a hemp-based or industrialized hemp-based product, as well as for a cannabis product. So we've got some really interesting opportunities with countries choosing to legalize hemp or cannabis for us to be able to offer our products and services within those countries. And those are things that you'll hear us talk about in the next coming quarters, with some recent legalizations of cannabis in other countries and industrial hemp in other countries, we're really focused on being able to deploy our technology and products and services to those countries, those healthcare systems, to be able to help them, create a pharmaceutical grade medical herb product, which is, really, really, really exciting. So in terms of, legality, I feel like I'm repeating myself 3 or 4 times in that, but it's important for people to understand that our products are not what the typical, marijuana-based product would be, the stigma that surrounds us. Even though we know that medically those products are very effective for different treatments and ailments, and you can go to our website, medicalmarijuanainc.com/research, and you can read the hundreds of clinical trials, abstracts, and studies that have been done using cannabis-based products. You can see, how effective those have been. So to kind of sum that up, the political environment doesn't affect necessarily our company. The state and federal, legalities don't necessarily affect our company. So we think we're very well positioned for the market currently, as well as the market that's going to exist 10 years from now if cannabis does get legalized. Well, we get to switch our focus from what we're doing today to just changing the type of varieties or cultivars for our production of products. So either way, politically, economically, we've been able to have substantial growth and fit within the laws that exist today, and positioning ourselves for the laws that we feel are going to happen in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line. And that's not just in the United States, that's internationally as well. Latin America, the Canadian market, as well as the European and Asian market. A lot of growth and opportunity in those markets as well. And a lot of those markets are much more seasoned, well-positioned, tolerable, and the legal status is different than it is currently in the United States. So we'll have some pretty significant growth in those markets shortly.
Okay. Let's just touch on...
Quite a bit to throw out at you.
No, that's fantastic. I love CEOs who talk a lot, and it's all good information, and rehashing things, time and time again, that's definitely needed. It kind of makes people understand a little bit better. Why don't we talk a little bit about expanding into the European Union? The company recently formed the new portfolio company, Canapa Holdings, as it plans to expand into the European Union here. And I know through Canapa Holdings, and just reading over some of the recent press here, they're planning to do some clinical trials throughout the European Union. And, you mentioned within 60 days, you guys are planning to get some sort of approval related to being able to sell your products over the counter throughout the entire European Union, which is 26 countries. So obviously a big market potential over there. Why don't you talk a little bit about Canapa Holdings and the process through which you guys plan to expand over in Europe?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Very exciting opportunity, the European market. Their understanding of cannabis and industrialized hemp-based products and the legal structure there. So it's a very exciting opportunity. We've had our team all over Europe for quite some time now, finalizing the steps necessary to have our over-the-counter product approved for importation and sales with a general structural or functional claim, which would still allow us to reach our audience, have them understand what our products are used for, and still meet all of the European guidelines for importation as well as over-the-counter sales. So we've spent quite a bit of time, energy, and capital behind that. We currently have 5 of our product lines submitted for EU approval. We've started, we'll update everybody on that clinical development. In fact, we have a new tab on our website this week that you guys will be able to go to on Friday, and you'll be able to see and track the clinical development worldwide of the products, as well as where they currently stand in terms of their sales, distribution agreements, and so on and so on. So it'll be pretty interactive. section of our site where you can track that development as well as who we're partnering with and sales and distribution. Very exciting. So we'll have an update on that within the next 30 to 60, 90 days as we finish walking through that approval process, and that's for the over-the-counter products. And simultaneously, which if I could step back for a second, simultaneously, that gives us strategically a huge advantage. If you look at a typical pharmaceutical type product or company, those companies are their products on average, this is as of 2009, take between 11 and 15 years for a product to get approved as a pharmaceutical, and about a 1.7 billion for them to put into their research development, initial trials, and so on and so on. That's before they get to sell one product. We're going dual routes. We're going after the over-the-counter market with one product line, and a conventional pharma process by doing the clinical trials and going through that process to get those products approved internationally, and then we'll back into the North American market. But we have a product that's being sold today over the counter in Colorado, which will soon be sold internationally over the counter. We get to have those products available now while we're simultaneously doing that clinical development. So we've a huge strategic advantage, not just from profit, a market share perspective, a return perspective, but also a cost perspective on the costs and the capital required to get those approvals in those different countries on a clinical side. Like I mentioned before, 11 to 15 years for an average pharma product to get approved, pharmaceutical medication to be approved, and 1.7 billion. So we have a significant strategic advantage in being able to sell our products over the counter currently, and in the future as a pharmaceutical-based product, as a drug that can be prescribed or recommended from a doctor. So very, very exciting. And that starts with Canepa Holdings and the development in Europe, and then we'll back into the U.S. and Latin America markets.
Okay. Fantastic. Great answer. Yeah, it just kind of seems like over the course of the last year or so, you guys have really picked this up and really started to build and solidify the foundation of the company, bringing in these different portfolio companies that we mentioned all complement each other, and now you're expanding overseas into the European Union. You're getting all the proper regulatory approvals. You guys really haven't even tapped into a pinch of your potential market yet, have you?
No, not even a pinch. We get quite a few questions on that particular subject, but we haven't even truly begun marketing and sales. We haven't truly begun our awareness campaign for our products and on the company. We haven't even broached the surface of that. We focused on first developing our products, really developing and owning those products and mastering that particular aspect of the industry. Just like you can look at Dixie, the Dixie brand. Dixie is in Colorado, was formed in Colorado, and it's currently in Colorado. They could have expanded to other markets months ago, but we decided as a team and as a company to focus on doing something very, very well first, dominating that particular aspect of our market and industry, and then expanding. You have to build the foundation first. You have to be able to execute, and then you can do all the other necessary things. But we're focused on our planning, implementation, and execution first. And so I think you can see that not just from a financial standpoint of the company, but also from how we chose to update shareholders and not play the typical industry type games. We're focused on building the business, building the revenues, building our patentable product base, our distribution channels first, and then we'll get to the other aspects of growing the business second. Because if you don't have the foundation built, you cannot build a home. So that's what we've truly been focused on. I think you can see that in how we've updated the company, everything from our communication platform on our website to doing interviews and calls like this. So you'll see much more of that in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Your guys' website is one of the best I've seen, especially for a company, in the over-the-counter market. It's great. I still haven't gotten through it all, and I've been looking it over for 2-3 days now. There's just so much research and so much good information on there. It's a great, fantastic website. Why don't?
Yeah, we've got a great team, a tech team, on staff who constantly maintains and updates that, and it's something we put a lot of pride and time into. And we definitely don't think of ourselves as like you said, a typical over-the-counter tech company. That's not our eventual goal. We're, like we publicized before, we're planning on walking up the boards and continue to increase our revenue, profit, the overall value and presence of the company.
Awesome, fantastic. You touched briefly on increasing your distribution networks and different things like that. Are there any other strategic alliances or partners that your shareholders need to know about, or potential shareholders that are going to be really key as you guys enter into this next phase of your business?
Currently, we've got a marketing campaign that we've committed to in terms of our product awareness and retail sales distribution, online sales distribution, and that's slated for the next 6 months. So for the next 6 months, we've already dialed into the channels that we'd like to sell and distribute with. And we're always open to new opportunities from other companies who have products and services that we can possibly partner with. But as it stands today, we've committed to our sales strategies, to our direct sales campaign, to our over-the-counter, as well as our retail and online sales. So there aren't any updates in terms of additional distribution partners as it stands today, because we're not prepared to really release that information. We like to, if you can look back on our track record of MJNA, on our releases, on what we've updated shareholders on and the market on, we really choose to talk about what's been done and not what we're hoping to do. So if you read, our updates on certain transactions, just like the most recent closing of our, oil contract, we talk about what's been done, not what we're hoping to do. So we will have some updates in the very near future about some additional channels that have been signed and distribution partners that we're growing the portfolio with. When those are ready to come out, we'll gladly share those and update the team.
Great. You touched briefly on revenues. Why don't we just get into some of that a little bit? I'm actually looking at your most recent quarterly ending in March of 2012 here. As you mentioned earlier in the interview, Wellness Managed Services, one of your portfolio companies, is bringing in pretty close to 50% of the revenues through the end of March in 2012 here, and about the other 50% coming from licensing fees with the hemp oil. And, your other portfolio companies, as of this March 31st, 2012 quarterly, aren't really contributing any revenues to this. And the markets for those are, I would imagine, exponentially larger than these even. So why don't we touch a little bit on some revenue expectations for your company 1 year from now, 5 years from now? I mean, what are your goals? Realistic goals.
Well, yeah, when we try to be very realistic in our updates, and we like to under promise and over deliver on all the subjects we kind of speak on. So from a projection standpoint in terms of revenue, we have not publicized our projections for the next 1 to 5 years yet, because in terms of where the market's going, in terms of the companies that we've built and are building, it's too early to say without getting a little bit further along before we can truly put out those projections that I would feel comfortable with having our shareholders look at and review, as well as the market look at and review. So we will be publishing those projections coming towards the end of the year, after we get a little bit further along in the approval process, as well as our sales and distribution of the other companies that you mentioned that are not on our financials. So that gives us, to back up on your question, it gives us a pretty substantial amount of growth. What we have said publicly is that we anticipate our revenue to continue to increase compoundedly about 100% or slightly less per quarter as we continue to ramp these companies up. Now, as the portfolio and sales build, we obviously can't sustain that type of percentage growth quarter after quarter after quarter, but we did say through 2012 we're comfortable with about 100% compounded per quarter in terms of our revenue growth. And if you look at our first quarter profit margins, they're pretty substantial. About $1.2 million net on $1.7 million revenue, but that is not just exciting for us. It also we're able to organically grow our portfolio. We're able to organically grow the business. So we're able to take those profits and reinvest those into product launches, acquisitions, further development of the patents, further development of the clinical development. So that's an exciting opportunity. And all of those revenues were based on, and the projections were based on prior to, or our announcements on our revenue growth were posted prior to our Can-Chew acquisition and investments, prior to HintMed's launch. That was prior to the revenues generated from the Dixie Elixirs, the brand, as well as the Dixie X product. And that was prior to us being able to understand what we'd be able to do truly with our hemp oil product line and our CBD extracts and product line. That was all prior to that. So we think at the end of this year you'll see some pretty exciting growth, and I think 2013 is going to really kick off our significant retail sales and direct marketing, especially with products like our Can-Chew. We've had phenomenal quarterly growth. We've been very happy with that. We've obviously had hiccups in the industry, like anybody else, in terms of growing their business, but we've been able to manage that appropriately and come out with some very strong numbers, and we look forward to continuing that increase in revenue for this year. And 2013 looks bright.
Yeah, I mean, I read over a lot of financial balance sheets pretty much every single day. I'm kind of a nut about this stuff, and I'm just comparing the end of 2011, the December quarter versus the March quarter in 2012 here, and just the growth just within the licensing revenue and wellness managed services areas is just phenomenal. Right. $100,000 quarter before to $1 million in the previous quarter here, and wellness managed services from $280,000 to $750,000 within one quarter since you guys have kind of been ramping up a little bit. And that doesn't even tap into your other three portfolio companies, which the market for is probably going to be larger than these, much, much larger. And that was before you guys were expanding over to the European Union, too. So, I mean, it's huge.
All great points, and I appreciate you taking the time to really dig into that and review it. The other thing that you should take a look at is the fact that our operating expenses have really, in terms of our overhead for management, executives, sales and marketing teams, those have, for the most part, stabilized. So our operating expenses to operate the company from a public standpoint, our operating expenses from our publications and our filings and so on, that's stabilized, which is exciting, especially for a company at our stage who has got tremendous growth potential, is constantly on the acquisition and development side. Our basic operating expenses have stabilized, so I'd just really like to point that out as well. Now, obviously, we're going to have an increase in our licensing costs and our legal work and our sales and marketing, over the coming quarters, but our operating expenses have stayed the same. I think that's pretty crucial to point out. When you look at the number of companies in any industry, especially when they're growing, it's hard to really look at their operating expenses and know from a quarterly basis where those are going to be at, because the company's ever expanding. In our case, we get to outsource a lot of our production in terms of manufacturing certain products, so it keeps our general operating expenses quite stable. So that's exciting as well.
Yeah, I think your operating expenses were actually less for the most recent quarter than the quarter before. So most of those extra revenues just go into the bottom line. You provide some cash flow for you guys to expand with all the different things you have going on now compared to, even 2 quarters ago. So great, phenomenal balance sheet.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
a lot of time and energy on just those topics. So we appreciate it.
Well, great. Bouncing off of revenues a little bit, let's just cover briefly some of the details about your company and the actual stock itself. Let's talk about the share structure first. Why don't you tell us about your authorized share count, outstanding share count, and your current free trading float, and any plans for that to change in the near or long-term future, any type of different changes with that?
Currently, we have outstanding. We have one common stock, so we have one common, and that's for officers and directors, management, our insiders, our staff, as well as people publicly acquiring the shares on the open market. So, as a company, we have one class of stock, which is we currently have roughly about 52% of that stock in our public float, or roughly 270 million or so, out of about 580 million, 586 million issued. And we recently increased our authorized due to some acquisitions or potential acquisitions that we have, distribution arrangements and other things we just touched on, to 750 million. But to date, we have not issued any of those additional shares. So we currently have one class of stock, roughly 52% on the open market float. We have a pretty substantial shareholder, which is Hemp Deposit Distribution Corporation, which owns roughly 265 million shares.
Okay. Oh, great. Why don't you talk about the transfer agent next? Transfer agent for your company?
Yeah, we have First American Stock Transfer out of Arizona. They are phenomenal. You can find all of their information on our Investors Relations tab on our website, which is www.medicalmarijuanainc.com. It has all of our most recent filings, all of our press releases, as well as all the standard forms that you may need for the transfer agent on our website, as well as all their contact information. So that can all be found on our website.
Okay, great. Is the transfer agent open for investors to call and inquire about the actual share structure of the company?
Yeah, they are. Obviously, they can only disclose what's public information, but they are available, and all that contact information is on our website as well.
Okay. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add at the end of this interview? I mean, we've covered tons of information. Obviously, the company is very complex with all its different portfolio companies and all the different types of things they're doing. And I understand, the industry is very complex in and of itself. Is there anything you'd like to add before we send our shareholders off to do their own little research into the company?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this interview, and I appreciate listeners listening in and giving us the platform to be able to better communicate and update. I think a couple of key things to really focus in on, in terms of our communication and our updating is our website is a tool. So we really would like people to use it. There's a lot of great information on there. As a company, and for myself, we're really working on now our communication and how we update shareholders in the market, how we explain and disseminate information. For instance, like I mentioned on Friday, you'll be able to go to the website and look at our clinical development and product launches and track that information. You'll be able to see where we're at with each one of the companies and portfolio companies in terms of the organizational chart and the ownership structure and the sales and marketing structure. That will all be updated on the site this month as well. So we're trying to be able to make the process for our shareholders in the market to understand who we are and what we do a little bit easier through there's updates on our website. So stay tuned for those, and please feel free to use the website and our 800 numbers and email as a tool. So you can reach us at the office Monday through Friday, and typically Saturdays and Sundays. If it's an operations team or the research and development, they're here constantly. Please use the website as a tool. It's got a lot of helpful information, really, really good information. The most up-to-date information you can find is on the website. So I think that about covers it. Appreciate your guys' time, and appreciate everybody taking the time to listen in.
No, we appreciate you coming on the show here. It sounds like you guys are setting up for a fantastic fall. We would love to get you back on at some point later this year once some of these things that we've talked about today come to light.
Yeah, what we'd ideally like to do is do a quarterly call like this and go through the development as well as the quarterly financials and update everybody in your show on where that kind of stands. That'd be wonderful, and I'm sure our shareholders in the market would appreciate it.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I mean, it looks like your guys' marketing campaign is coming into full effect now, too. You just put out some press today related to Dixie Elixir's Trip Kieber appearing on Sirius XM Radio's iCannabis channel tonight. Do you want to touch briefly on that?
Yeah, actually, Trip is a managing director of Dixie Elixirs, also a partner in Red Dice, which owns that brand. He runs, for Medical Marijuana Inc., our non-pharmaceutical development of products, so our everyday consumables or over-the-counter products. So he was asked to recently discuss the hemp-based products and CBD-based products on iCannabis Radio and Sirius. So that's very exciting. Trip is amazing. I would recommend everybody tuning in for that. Not only is he a character, he's a gentleman and a class act. So
great. Well, I'll definitely be tuning in for that.
A lot of great information. And you can find that most recently on our update. So you can go to our website and click on the most recent PR link, and it'll take you to that website for the Sirius Radio and how to dial in. And I believe it's watched live as well. So it's a live over the internet broadcast as well.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show, Mr. Llamas, and we definitely look forward to having you on the show again later this year. Thanks for taking the time to speak to our audience. And also, traders, make sure you tune in tomorrow morning for another morning show of STT Radio. Haas, STT Radio, out.
Thank you for listening to Stock Traders Talk Radio. All views and topics talked about on Stock Traders Talk Radio is solely for entertainment purposes. We are not professional financial advisors and always recommend you seek the advice of a professional financial advisor. Never invest in any stock featured on our show unless you can afford to lose your entire investment. The information contained on our show is based on sources which we believe to be reliable, but is not guaranteed by us as being accurate, and might not be a complete statement or summary of the available data. Stock Traders Talk Radio advises that the investments in companies profiled are commonly considered to be high risk, and use of the information provided is at the investor's sole risk. Thank you for listening to Stock Traders Talk Radio.